Okay, so Hilda is asking, how is suicide viewed in Islam? Well, suicide is a major sin in Islam, one that would almost guarantee you to go to hell for what we were told ever, because technically you just committed murder against your soul. Um, the understanding is that you are not allowed to kill anybody because that's God's choice. Uh, God, only God gets to decide. Well, I mean, unless you're killing. Well, I can't say that. I have to choose my words carefully so that YouTube doesn't think I'm saying something that I'm not, right? So even if you are doing jihad, right, and like taking lives, technically you're doing the will of God, like you're being the hand of God. So you're not doing, so you're fighting on behalf of Allah. So, but other than that, you can't, and also if you are carrying out executions, you're carrying out the law of Allah, right? But at the end of the day, it's God's choice. It's God, a life is God's choice to take and give, right? So you can't just take one's life, including your own. And that would be a major sin in Islam. One that we were told, I know different people might have different interpretations, but we were told in school that that would get you to hell and forever, right? Because technically, you just committed murder, right? So, how does, so, I guess the reason why people ask this is because of like suicide bombings and stuff like that, right? Um, and that's why a lot of Islamic scholars are saying, like, how could you say that these radical Muslims that commit suicide bombings, how could you say they're Islamic, given that suicide is a sin in Islam and none of this is allowed, right? But so it really depends on how you look at it. This is why religion is very dangerous, because basically your hand is, when you have magic on your side, your hand is open to make excuses for everything. The earliest form of suicide attacks were done, if people, I don't know if this is sensationalized or if this is accurate, but the Ismaili assassins, right, during the Fatimiyun, you know uh, dynasty back in Egypt, when they were assassinating the both, you know mostly Muslims. Okay, so the way this gets portrayed in the media is that they mostly assassinated, what is it called, the Templars, like the knights. What is it called? Um, the what are those? Yeah, Templars, right? Is that what they're called? Yeah, the Knight Templars. I don't know if that's what they call. Yeah, the Knights Templars, right? So because the media likes to portray this as like a Muslim versus Christian fight that it used to be, like you had like Islamic assassins going out and taking Christian knights and stuff like that, right? So that's pretty exciting for especially Hollywood and movies and stuff. But that a lot of that did take place, but most of their targets of those Ismaili assassins, most of them were other Muslims, especially because you had multiple caliphs at the time. You had at some point you had three caliphs competing with each other in Islamic history, but two of them was like the Fatimiyun, and the major one, the Abbasid dynasty. So there was a major competition between these two, and the Ismaili assassins would take out like key figures in the other Islamic dynasty. So most of their targets were actually other Muslims, not Christians, even though they did attack Christians as well, right? So the understanding is, and I don't know how accurate this is, but this is what I read a long time ago, is that when they sent these assassins to take out their target, they would be trained on how to get to their target, but they wouldn't necessarily need to train on how to get out. Like, it was a suicide mission, right? Because they didn't care that much if they died once they took out their target, right? um and they were so much more effective, because usually if you had to plan an assassination, if you were limited based on, if your plan had to come up with ways to assassinate your target but also get out alive, the options that you had to take out the target would be a lot more limited, right? However, if you didn't have to worry about coming out alive, then your hands were a lot more free to do a lot more stuff, right? And these assassins were so committed to their faith and to their leaders that they didn't have to plan for coming out alive, right? So they would go in, they would take out their target, and they would get captured and get killed, right? Or tortured and then killed, right? Or killed on the mission. So they many years ago they set a precedent for this. But however, that is technically not them committing suicide, even though it's a suicide mission, because they didn't die with their own hands, right? In a similar way, by the way, it's interesting because the earliest form of suicide attacks in Islam was done by Shias, because Ismailis were Shias. And even in the modern era, the earliest form of celebrated suicide attack was not done by Sunnis, was done, in modern radical Islam also. The earliest form of a suicide attack was done by Hossein Fahmideh, which was apparently, I don't know how accurate the story is, but this is what we grew up with as a hero of ours, which was a 12-year-old kid who ran under an Iraqi tank and blew it up. And that story is kind of sus, because we were told he like put grenade on himself and then went and lied down under a tank, and the tank blew up. And this 12-year-old kid, oh yeah, and MEK, Susanna saying, and MEK as well. These are all Shia. Oh, let me turn this up. Oh my god, we have to deal with this noise. I can't believe would have to deal with this noise. How annoying is this noise in the background? Let me know. Hold on. If I turn this off, we're going to lose my internet. Tell me how annoying that noise is. I hope the power comes back soon. Yeah, this was in the late 80s. It's noticeable? Okay, it's noticeable, but how, and from a scale of 1 to 10, how annoying is that? Why can't I turn it off? I usually am able to turn it off. Okay, I might have to do the rest of the patron questions at another time because of this noise. A solid 5. Okay. All right, guys. I might have to. So let me just tell you. So okay. So the answer to this question is that a lot of scholars say, like, if you make an attack and you happen to die in an attack, then it would be then that's not a suicide, right? But if you actually press a button that makes you die, you're knowing that this will kill you, that would be suicide, and that's a sin in Islam. Okay, so that's my understanding is. But if you go to a mission trying to take out the enemy, and the enemy takes you out, and you knew that the enemy will take you out and you will die, that is not suicide, because you technically didn't kill yourself. Okay, so that's the answer.
Hey guys, if you want to join these streams live, get your comments and questions read by Ali and Armin and the guests, and most importantly, to get full access to the full video versions of all these episodes, become a patron. Link in the description below.